And we are live.
And we're live. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Nikhil with Shelf-Esteem. I am very excited to have a wonderful dear friend and booktuber here, Cliff from Cliff's Dark Gems. So we met right around the beginning of my booktube journey, and we realized we had the same taste in books. I love horror as much as fantasy and historical fiction, a lot of that stuff. And Cliff from Cliff's Dark Gems, he kind of specializes in horror and darker books and darker stories. So it's always fun for me to see something that is both Stephen King and non-Stephen King related, because for me, horror becomes synonymous with Stephen King or Robert McCammon, which is what we're going to discuss today. So I'm so happy to have you here, Cliff. How are you doing today?
So guys, I'm very happy to be here. I'm doing good. It's 8 o'clock in the evening here, so I wouldn't say bedtime. I know you guys are having breakfast and coffee and all of that stuff.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I'm very, very, very happy to be here. And thanks for having me, Nikhil. And yeah, I'm just starting to try and get into more kind of historical fiction, as this book certainly is, and maybe a little bit of fantasy this year as well. So yeah, I've got some plans for my channel, but I am going to mostly talk horror. And that's my thing, as you say.
Yep.
So thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I've been so excited to do this. I know we were talking about doing a couple different things, over the last couple months, and then I was here evacuating from the fires, and the whole year started off so crazy. So I'm just so glad
happy you're well. So happy that you are well and safe. Man.
Thanks, man.
When I heard that, I was just going, no, man, that's just awful.
Yeah, it's been a crazy start to the year, but I think a community like this makes things go down a little bit easier. Like, I feel very fortunate that we all have each other, that makes a huge difference, I think, in feeling like you're not alone. So I'm deeply grateful to you all. But yeah, I'm just so excited to chat with you, Cliff, because Robert McCammon, for those of you who don't know, is an author that's like a must-read author. Now, I am a Stephen King fan. He's my favorite author of all time. I believe, Cliff, you were mentioning earlier that he's your favorite as well.
Absolutely.
And his, Stephen King's sheer breadth of stories and characters and imagination is just fantastic. The thing with him is I find that a lot of readers love him, obviously, but there are people who feel like his writing style doesn't gel as much with them personally. One thing I noticed about Robert McCammon is, and I've read now, this was the 5th book I've personally read, but I've noticed everyone I've talked to who has been introduced to his seminal works, Boy's Life and Swan Song, very few of them, if any, I can recall, have said like, it wasn't for me, and for an author to consistently make people feel something through his books is something very special, especially for people who don't read. Like you were saying, historical fiction, you don't read as much. A lot of people who don't read horror end up loving his books. So, when you can cross your genre and like kind of appeal to people that are outside of what their normal reading tastes are, I think that's a real testament to his gift for characters and story and everything. But I would love to know from you, Cliff, like, what started your McCammon journey? I figured we could start off broadly before launching into Speaks the Nightbird.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was kind of dramatic because we went on holiday, and I got a gift from my wife, Swan Song, and it had to be imported because I couldn't find a copy in South Africa. And I spent, both my wife and I spent the holiday reading this book. I spent the first 2.5 days. That's how long it took me to read. What is it? How long is a book? 1,100, 200 pages?
Yeah.
I was basically lying on the beach, sitting on the beach. We had like a little shack thing.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to put this book down because I was absolutely blown away by this book. And I rate it now as my favorite book of all time. I just absolutely adore it. And the characters, which is very important with this author. I think he is absolutely incredible with the characters, very character-driven stories. And then I read Boy's Life. Felt very similar, but blown away. I think this is also my 5th book.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I think I've read Mine, which is more like a thriller. It's like a road, kind of a revenge thriller thing. Can't remember what the 5th book is, but all of them have been 4 or 5 star. You conquer all.
Yeah.
Conquer all. Yeah. So it's an incredible journey, and I want to read everything. Everything is written. And what's interesting about this book, though, Speaks the Nightbird. Now, he had not written anything for 10 years before this. Because he was a horror author, and he wanted to change. He wanted to do things differently. He wanted to find his different voice, and he had a problem with the publishers because they wanted him to keep kind of churning out the horror. And so he took a break from writing, and this came freaking 10 years later.
It's amazing. Yeah, I think about that a lot because I think about so many, he's written so many books, of course, but I also think about like, oh man, if he hadn't taken that break, I wonder what else could have come from this genius mind.
Exactly. Because you kind of missed it.
Yeah, exactly. I feel FOMO for the books that haven't been written with this author, because to your point, he was writing horror for a while, about a decade or so, and then he came up with Boy's Life, which is kind of more of a coming of age story. I think of it as like, do you remember the book or the novella The Body by Stephen King? Which was adapted into a film called Stand By Me in the 80s. And then also like The Sandlot, if you remember that 90s film. There's a little bit of this kind of magical realism of growing up as a kid in the 1960s, I believe, if I remember correctly. So
I think the Boy's Life really just transports you back into that time. It is just pure magic. And I mean, I've spoken about it on my channel in my top 10.
Yeah.
And I actually should do a coming of age top 10. I think I might have.
I think that would be wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I might have.
I may be biased.
I know the body. Yeah. I know the body would be on there. I know Dan Simmons, Summer of Night, would definitely be on there. But I love the whole coming of age trope. It's very cool.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah, me too. I haven't read Summer of Night yet, but I have to get to that at some point.
Yeah, you must get to that.
And Ordinary Grace, I've heard, by William Kent Kruger, I've heard is supposed to be really good for that, in that subgenre. But yeah, no, I'm so excited to chat.
We have to do another coming of age buddy read. That's it.
I'm in. Count me in. I'm so down with it. No, I'm just so excited to chat with you about this. For all of you who are kind of new to this channel or new to what we're doing here, basically, Speaks the Nightbird is book 1 of the Matthew Corbett series that Robert McCammon started, I think, in the early 2000s, if I remember correctly, and it concluded just recently, I think a few months ago, with Leviathan, the 10th and final book. So, I've been wanting to get into McCammon. I know Cliff, you mentioned you wanted to get more into McCammon and finish his works and stuff. And a 10-book series is a perfect way to do that, right? So, and it's interesting because this series is very different to pre Boy's Life McCammon, in the sense that it's not traditionally horror. It's not just like a coming of age. There are coming of age elements in Matthew Corbett's series. In the first book, there's historical fiction, there's mystery, there's a little bit of horror. It's kind of a mashup, and it's something that very few authors do well. I think Stephen King is one of them. But it's very rare that you can do that. And I think one thing that Robert McCammon does so well is have a through line, where his through line is his characters. His character work lets him play in all these genres, because you kind of believe even the more absurd things, that he talks about in his books. So I feel like that's one thing that really resonated with me personally regarding Speaks the Nightbird. But basically, for all of you who don't know what this book is about, because it's basically, there's different stories in each book, but they're kind of all tied together by this character, Matthew Corbett. He's a clerk that works for a magistrate in the year 1699. So this is like 7 years post-Salem witch trials. So the witch hunting and everything is very much on everybody's mind. And so he's working for this magistrate, and they end up in a town called Fountain Royal, which is kind of a place that feels like it's on the edge, of like either succeeding.
It's like a frontier town almost, like a little frontier town.
Exactly.
That seems doomed to disappear. That's the big thing, because of kind of black magic, or this witch that is making all these terrible things happening. The townspeople are leaving, and everyone's blaming this woman, supposedly the witch.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And so this woman, Rachel Howarth, is being called a witch, and not everything is what it seems at the outset. So that's kind of the little tagline, I guess, impetus of this book. But yeah, no, I would love to kind of chat with you. What we're going to do is we're going to keep this section spoiler free, basically. And then we'll delineate when there's spoilers. So if you haven't read this book yet and you want to pick up a copy, you can jump in and out as you need to. We just want to make sure we're not spoiling anyone, because this is a majestic book, and I think there's a lot of things we like about it. But yeah, like I would love to start, kind of non-spoilery broadly. Cliff, was there anything in particular that you really liked about Speaks the Nightbird?
Before I say anything, if you hear like kind of a scratching in the background, that's my dog Layla. So I apologize in advance. She's sitting front there. She's having a good scratch.
Hi, Layla.
Well, yeah, let's talk about one thing that I really liked right at the beginning.
Yeah,
is that the sense of setting, time and place. That he really kind of throws you into this place. Like you say, in late 1600s, and the struggles of that time. You introduced to Matthew and the magistrate, and they're on a horse and cart, and you can see they've got to watch out for wild beasts, and they've got to kind of watch out for Indians, and they've got to watch out for this and that, and so there's this sense of threat straight away, of this sense of the time and the struggles, and I like that. I really like that, and also with the town, just the way that he describes the town. And the marsh, it's marshes, right?
Yeah.
Swamps, marshes, and the climate, and everything. You just get a sense of place. You get a sense of time. So it's kind of be thrown into that setting. It's just, wow, yeah. He does, just as he does with characters, he does such a good job of making you feel like you are there with his characters. And so that's not giving any spoilers away. That's just saying, I think the setting was quite powerful. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. No. To your point, Cliff, I completely agree. I feel, it's one thing to kind of describe a setting, and then there's another aspect of immersion to make you feel like you can literally feel it with your senses. There were times when the kind of just the oppressive air around Fount Royal.
Yeah.
You could almost feel it as you're turning the pages. You think about the advances in medicine. Things that would affect people's day-to-day life. That's a really interesting kind of thing that I don't see often explored in a historical fiction narrative, let alone in this time period, So you could just imagine. Yeah.
It's also the clothing. I mean, it's clothing and what they're wearing. Everything is described so well. Yeah. You just get to feel like you dropped there. In there. The atmosphere, bread, the atmosphere, the fears, and then you start getting introduced to the townspeople, and it's like he tells the story for a large part through the townspeople. As you meet them, more of the mystery unravels. Okay, this isn't really a spoiler. I'm not going to give any spoilers away, but it's character driven. So you learn about what's happening. It's like Nikhil said, not everything is right there. I just think he's brilliant with the settings, the characters, the feel. You get in there straight away.
Yeah. I agree. Actually, to your point, Cliff, about fear, that was an interesting thing too. Is you think about the role of, you could say, like religion in people's lives in that time. In their livelihood, people were prone to kind of thinking like, if somebody says they're ordained by God, you'll believe them because you don't want to be wrong. You don't want to, you don't want to. Yeah. So there's a superstitious mentality there that, you could see both good and bad actors in it. It was very easy to manipulate people to your agenda.
Everything was seen in black and white at that time. There's no gray areas.
Right.
If you, and okay, not really getting into spoiler territory, but there were characters that behaved like, well, I don't know if it's spoiler. This is so difficult. Okay, when you're introduced to the magistrate, right? He's a magistrate. He's been trained. He's a traditionalist. It even says at the beginning he hasn't done anything with witches yet, but so he's actually a good man.
Mm-hmm.
But he sees the world in black and white, like everyone else, and he wants to be firm but fair, and yet he can't see the bigger picture. And I think that's a problem with that time and that age. Can't see the bigger picture. It's about, like I said, paranoia and fear of God, basically fear of God. And fear that you're going to be labeled a witch or something if you have a different opinion or if you see things slightly different. Where Matthew Corbett comes in, he's curious, and love him as a character. He's curious, he's interesting, and I can't wait to continue the journey with him. So
no, same. I think it's interesting. I love how Robert McCammon kind of toes the line with each character, like you were mentioning with the magistrate. Even if he's misguided in any particular ways, he's doing it with the best of intentions.
Right intentions.
Matthew Corbett, he is an intensely curious person, and that can be a really good thing in a lot of ways, especially when you're trying to solve a mystery. However, there's a fine line between that and maybe overstepping your curiosity. It's like the curiosity killed the cat kind of thing.
Yeah, he's naive. He's naive.
Yeah, he's naive.
But at the same time, he has to be brave and he has to be courageous.
Yeah.
And he has to follow what he thinks is right.
Yeah.
So it's like, he's overstepping the line, but he can see. Okay, we're kind of getting into spoiler territory now, right? Can we say that?
I guess so. Yeah. It's always a fine line with spoilers, apparently.
Yeah. So spoilers, beep, beep, beep. But he basically he knows that she's innocent. Now Rachel, and you kind of feel that yes, he's kind of fallen for her at the same time. So he wants to protect her, but he can see during the trials when the evidence is provided with people that there are discrepancies.
Yeah.
Whereas the magistrate, it's about they're telling the truth. They've got the hand on the Bible. This is what they saw. She was with the devil. She was this. She murdered, what was it, her husband, this other minister. But the big damning evidence is that she was with the devil, fornicating with the devil, whatever.
Yeah.
But all three of the things are inconsistent. So it's like kind of Matthew has this ability to see things that other people don't see, or he has this inquisitive nature. I don't know how to put it in words properly, but he has this kind of other sense that something's not right here, and he's willing to do that.
It seems almost like he's able to take unrelated concepts and put them together.
Yeah.
And connect the dots. And he also doesn't let go of an issue. Sometimes to his benefit, sometimes to his detriment.
It's in trouble. It gets him into trouble.
It gets him into trouble, yeah. And Robert McCammon's really good with that in the sense that he provides movement to the story through Matthew Corbett's inquisitiveness, but then also provides stakes. It's the same. It's like a double-edged sword, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
I know. I found that very interesting as well. I also found it interesting, kind of the way the story's structured. This is kind of still a little bit in mild spoiler, but not quite spoiler territory. But the very beginning of the story, they're on their way to Fountain Royal, and they end up in a town. Was it Charlesville? Maybe? I think it was Charlesville. Yeah.
No. They actually left Charlesville, right? And they're on the road at the beginning. And they end up
right. And then there's like a town in between or something.
There's an inn. Yeah. And that's actually quite a horrifying scene at the inn.
Yeah.
And So I found it interesting. I just think that have I frozen?
Yeah, it froze there for a brief moment.
Okay. That's because I'm headlighting the screen. I think I need to step back a bit. Definitely a coming of age, because you talk about how he's naive and he makes, which is true.
Yeah.
But towards the end, he knows, it's the courage of his convictions. He knows he's doing the right thing at great danger to himself. And I think that's very important.
Yeah.
So he does kind of transition into this character that has flaws. And yes, he's fallen for this supposed witch. But then he realizes she is innocent, and he'll do anything to prove that she's innocent. Great danger to himself. So there is a transition in his character, right? There's a movement there.
100%. Yeah, he goes from more of the clerk assistant to kind of taking the lead in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
What
were you saying about the inn? What were you saying about the inn?
So for the inn, the one thing that I thought was very interesting was how the first part of that story takes place around this inn. Then the second part of the story, they end up in Fount Royal. And the events of the inn kind of are somehow, both unrelated to what happens at the, in the rest of the story regarding the witch and everything. But the seeds of it kind of permeate through Matthew Corbett and the magistrate's consciousness. It kind of like plays on their fears a little bit.
And I think the fact that the magistrate loses that coat. That is, we don't know why it's so special to him.
Right.
It is, and we learn that later on. But I'm just going to say, one of the most horrifying scenes. Okay, now we're in spoiler territory.
So spoilers starting now.
Horrifying scenes in that whole book was learning what happened to that innkeeper towards the end of the book. You could say that, he deserves punishment for what he did. But wow. I mean, I don't know if you want to go there yet, but that was...
It was extremely graphic. Yeah, it was extremely graphic.
And, I mean, there are some very graphic scenes in this book. I thought there was one that maybe was a bit out of place with someone who's a bit too enamored with his horse. He loves his horse very much.
Right.
We're going to go there. But really, I just thought, whoa, where did this come from?
Right, yeah. Oh, totally, yeah. I've noticed this with Robert McCammon, though. He plays the characters up so well that even the things that you would normally in other stories have to suspend your disbelief, a little bit, and you'd feel like, this is a little weird, or like, this is random. Of course, it is weird and random, but it kind of adds to the mystique of the whole place too. It kind of like it adds rather than detracts. Like instead of taking you out of the story, it kind of draws you further in and go, what kind of place is this?
Well, it's just because he writes it so bloody well. So it's like he could write anything into the story and it just fits. It's okay.
Totally.
Because we talked about when he runs away with her and goes off and Indians and the bear and all that. I love that part, but there's, like you said, it was very far off, very far left field. And yet he does it and he pulls it off, and I love it. I thought it was fun.
I'm just seeing some of the comments in the chat here.
Okay, let's check them out.
Yeah. Alicia said, I don't think I'll be able to make the show, but I love the book and wanted to tell Cliff, yo.
Yo.
Miss you, Alicia. Thanks for commenting here. And Anita, hey.
Do you know how to put the comments on the screen?
I don't know, actually.
You just click on them. You just click on them.
Let's see. Am I able to do it if I have less than, like if I'm not monetized or anything, or I don't know.
Are you on full screen or?
I am.
You should be able to if you make it like smaller screen. Comments are on your right, and you should be able to click onto the comment. It will come onto the screen, and then click again.
There we go. Oh, that's cool.
There we go.
All right.
There we go.
Learn something new every day.
It's also her favorite book. That's why we didn't have a holiday except to read that book.
Yep. Boy's Life is definitely a good one, Anita. I feel like anyone who's read it has loved it. So.
Yeah. It's not top 10. Okay.
Let's see. So yeah, I wanted to kind of talk to you a little bit about your favorite characters and things as well, because there's so many actually. You know, when you go to Fount Royal, there's obviously the witch. There is the person who's kind of trying to propagate this town, and much to his detriment. You have Mrs. Nettles. You have a bunch of different characters, kind of side characters, ones that have smaller roles, bigger roles. Were there any particular characters that resonated with you?
Besides Matthew Corbett and the Magistrate, and also Rachel, just found so vulnerable, and I actually right from the beginning when I read that little scene with the rat catcher, seemed like such a interesting dude, and the way he was like doing that thing with the rats. I was like, whoa, is it something different? So I kind of liked him as a character. And then, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. And then the guard as well to the prison.
Oh yeah.
A rough mofo, but also at the same time seemed like he was kind of quite a forthright guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The way he treated people. I can't remember what his name was. Can you remember his name?
It wasn't that like Hannibal or something.
Hannibal something. Something Green. I think his surname was.
I forget now.
Okay.
I forget myself. But yeah, no, I agree. I feel like he's loyal to a fault. You know. So when that guard is on Mr. Bidwell's side, and the kind of the mayor of this town, who's trying to kind of propagate this town and make it thrive and flourishing, and kind of provides a foil to Matthew Corbett and the Magistrate in a lot of ways. But yeah, no, he's very this guard is very much loyal to Bidwell and the cause, and kind of protecting the town from this so-called witch. But as Matthew Corbett's relationship with him evolves as well, he is also loyal to Matthew Corbett. Which I found to be very endearing. Actually,
it just shows what kind of character he has. That's why.
He wants to do the right thing, I guess you could say.
Layla's having a massive scratcher.
Usually I'll let Pepper in here, but I figured today I'll keep her out because she loves just like jumping on my chair, scratching it up, like jumping on the curtains. It's just crazy.
Nothing wrong with having pets around, but there's nothing wrong with having pets around, but this is she's having. Okay, now she's eating herself. So.
She's like, "What are you doing there? Pay attention to me,"
Yeah, exactly. But some of my least favorite characters, I couldn't stand Matt. So it's just such a slumber.
Yeah.
And that he's putting logic and reason aside, and it's just he wants to desperately protect the town. Mm-hmm. But even when he can see the evidence, or when there's he's pushing for her to get executed the whole time.
Yeah.
He wants to protect the town. Yeah. So I didn't like him at all, and I didn't like. Who's that character's name? Hang on, I'll find it now. What was his name? He had a weird name. Exodus Jerusalem.
Oh, yes, of course, yeah. Even the name is a suspension of belief.
I hate that kind of Bible bashing, crazy character. You know what I mean? Like that.
Yeah.
And for the fact as well that he had an alternative kind of desires, like, oh no, you can just repent to me, come along with me, and be with me.
100%. Yeah.
I don't like the way. And interesting, right at the end of the book, that he says, "Oh, we're going to meet again."
Mm-hmm.
Matthew Corbett, so probably going to see him again. Well.
Unfortunately, probably, yeah. I haven't gotten very far into the second book yet, so I guess it remains to be seen. But no, I agree. I think Exodus Jerusalem was the one character that was unequivocally a foil to Matthew Corbett. Like, if you think about Mr. Bidwell and and kind of his motivations, he was so blinded by greed in a way. That because he was caring only for himself, but he wasn't an inherently evil person.
No,
He's a very weak man, a very faulted man, but he at the end he kind of comes around, right? So
well,
in some
yeah,
way.
but he's not going to change from being a greedy, kind of self-serving, selfish, self-serving man.
100%.
So you're right. He's not inherently evil, but I just really didn't like his character. He was like a slumber. He was a slumber.
Yeah.
Really. And even though he tried to make amends at the end by saying, trying to give her a gift or something, to try and make it, it's just a slumber.
Yeah.
I'm not going to change him.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree with you. He was second only to, I forget the innkeeper's name, but he was definitely up there in my least favorite characters.
He was definitely up there until I found out what happened to him.
Yeah, exactly.
And I felt like, what the hell happened to him?
Yeah.
With the Indians,
And in Exodus Jerusalem, of course, he had no redeeming qualities whatsoever. He was just a leech who wanted to, kind of
concubine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And he was there for purely his own motivations. It had nothing to do with the town. It was just for his own satisfaction.
And it had nothing to do with religion. That's the thing as well. Nothing to do with God at all.
Yeah. And so for those of you who don't know, Exodus Jerusalem is kind of a guy who comes over there like a preacher, but saying like, "Oh, I'm ordained by God to tell you we need to get rid of this witch sooner than later. No due process needed. No trial needed for her. Blah blah blah." And he even tries to like coerce Rachel Howarth into sleeping with him in exchange for like him putting in a good word to let her out. And he's just a terrible character in a lot of. He plays upon the idea of kind of what we're going on at the beginning of this conversation, that people at that time were much more superstitious. They didn't want to rock the boat. Like if somebody says they're ordained by God, then it's safer to err on the side of caution and believe them than it is to offend God, right? So
it's like at the beginning he basically starts a mob. Like a mob. And like you say, no one was willing to put up a stand except for the magistrate.
Right.
No, they have a fair trial here. Yeah.
I'm seeing another comment come in. Hey, Matt.
Hey, Matt. Welcome, Matt.
He says, I haven't read the book, but I have to say my favorite character is Matthew Corbett. Such a great name. Good. Matthews are good in my book,
Yeah. You must read the book. You'll love it, Matt.
It's fantastic. It's great for horror lovers. It's great for non-horror lovers. It's just got such broad appeal.
So Robert McCammon is just phenomenal. Can write anything.
Yeah. And the book, he writes big books a lot of times, and this book is no exception. It's like 800 something pages, but it doesn't feel that way because the way he plots and paces the book, ultimately, you have, it starts in this kind of inn, then it continues on into Fount Royal, and then there is and again, this is all spoilers, but there's kind of a 3-act structure to it in a lot of ways. So you have the inn section, you have the Fount Royal section, and then when Matthew Corbett decides like, hey, I think I love this woman, or I feel a vested interest in her safety and everything, then there's the 3rd act begins on what happens there and how it all resolves. And so because there's this delineation of 3 different sections, and then you have introductions of characters like, a third of the way through with Exodus Jerusalem just showing up at this town to create havoc, or you have a mob of people storming the gaol to try to, with influence by Exodus Jerusalem to kill Rachel Howarth earlier than the trial date, things like that. So you have these different zoom ins and zoom outs of different sections of the story. So it never really feels. It never feels like a longer book, or it never feels like an 800 page.
Well, let me tell you that for me at the beginning it did. Because I've never, in all honesty, the Salem, Salem witch trials has never really had an interest for me. That period of history has never kind of captivated me. even with all the kind of paranoia and everything we've been talking about. So it's not something that I would have chosen to read normally, but it was Robert McCammon and it was Readalong, and I thought, no, I'm going to try this because I love everything he's written. And it took me a little while. It took me up till about, the section when they were basically interviewing those three people who said she slept with the devil and all this. I didn't like that part. I didn't enjoy that. Just for me, it was like, it's not something that I like to read.
Yeah.
Whatever reason, not necessarily that it makes me uncomfortable. I just don't resonate to that kind of stuff. Just like when I read, what's it in school? Something Hawthorne about the Salem witch trials. Didn't like that book at all.
Was it the Crucible or?
Yes, the Crucible.
Yeah.
I actually taught that book, and I couldn't stand it.
Hmm.
I did not like teaching that book. It's just some part of history that doesn't connect with me at all.
It's actually very similar.
Even though it's interesting, I'm not saying that it's not interesting. It's just something that doesn't connect. And it took me after that, from when I started looking at the rat guy and some of the other characters, the guy with the gammy foot, and some of the guys that used to go to the mayor's house, the teacher and the doctor, his bloodletting. It's all these other interesting characters that sold me on it. And as I started getting deeper into the mystery with the characters, it's a mystery to be solved. And I started enjoying it more. But when I got to the interviewing, wasn't into it. The first scene was great, but it just, I didn't want to read a witchcraft novel as such.
Yeah.
But it becomes so much more. The more you read, that's why I ended up enjoying it, because it becomes so much more than it.
Yeah, no, I feel the same way. I remember reading The Crucible in high school. I watched the film, I think, as well at one point, and it was cool and all, but it was never something I would seek out on my own. And certainly, if it hadn't been Robert McCammon, I probably wouldn't have picked up the series. Because even that time period also doesn't typically appeal to me. But I think the great thing about historical fiction and authors like Robert McCammon is he can introduce you to worlds you never knew you would care about. And of course, through the lens of his characters and his storytelling and everything like that. But that's the cool thing, I think, is like when you find authors like that can show you a side of history or side of life that you would never seek out on your own. Now you're suddenly thinking about the world or seeing the world in a different light. So
it's not like I don't enjoy history.
Mm-hmm.
I read Ken Follett, Pillars of the Earth. I found that absolutely fascinating. I love that book.
Yeah.
And I know that maybe medieval times, that's fascinating to me. I think it's just that period in history with the Salem trials, the witchcraft trials, burning witches at the stake, mass hysteria and all that. It's interesting up to a point, but it's not something I would have picked out for myself to read. But what I'm enjoying, I like the idea that the next book, I haven't started it yet, is going to be early 1700. And I read that it's the first serial killer in New York or something.
That's right. Yeah.
Out of mental asylum and serial. So that might be more up my alley.
Yeah.
So
it sounds like it might be even more horror-esque, just from that description.
So even if I thoroughly enjoyed the book, I gave it 4 stars just because it's not something I would have read normally by him. But I ended up really enjoying it. I did. So 4.5 stars.
So I wish Goodreads would let you actually put the right star amount,
I
always have to do in whole numbers. It's always like, I always feel like I have to caveat it.
Exactly. But I still really enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I actually touching upon kind of what you were talking about, like the themes of hysteria and fear versus logic and reason. I'm curious, had that book taken place in any other time period, it probably wouldn't have had the same aspect of logic, reason, and hysteria, fear, right? Like in terms of say looking at the second book, and now you're looking at a big city, and you're looking at the city on the cusp of becoming like a proper city, right? New York
Yeah.
in the early 1700s. So it's going to be a different mentality in terms of how that logic reasoning. So I feel like the setting played a part of that. The time period also played a part of that. But yeah, I would love to know your thoughts on the themes of it.
Yeah. No, it's just paranoia, but the whole loyalty. What did I write down here? Let me just think here. I actually wrote down individualism. Oh yeah, one of the themes I thought that were very important was courage in the face of adversity and of fear. And,
Yeah.
and for me, Matthew is the star of the show.
Yeah.
And he has to face up to this kind of mob mentality. Everyone's out to get him. He's going to be burned at the stake with his witch, and he has to display courage despite all of that. So he has to basically overcome his own fear, and as you say, he's curious, but it's more than that now. It's about there's a quote, and I wrote it down.
Good, yeah.
And I think it actually comes to just of what I'm trying to say. Let me find it. There it is. Yeah. Tell me, what is the point of life if truth is not worth standing up for? If justice is a hollow shell, if beauty and grace are burnt to ashes, and evil rejoices in the flames? Shall I weep on that day and lose my mind, or join the rejoicing and lose my soul? So he's basically, that quote is in the context of, I think that woman, Nettie, one of the housekeepers in the house, Mayor's house.
Yeah, is it Mrs. Nettles?
Yeah, and she's trying to say to him, just get out of it, leave it. You're in too deep. So he's saying no. Basically, courage can't fail. What is my life going to be like if I let all this burn, let her burn, and know that this justice has not taken place? What is the rest of my life going to be like? I'm going to walk, and I'm going to smell the fire. I'm going to smell the ashes, and I'm never going to be the same person again. I'm going to be broken. And I think for me, that is the theme of the book, that you have to have courage to do the right thing. So Matthew has to have courage to do, and that's what he learns. Maybe he doesn't know that at the beginning. Like I say, it's a coming of age, but that is his coming of age, that he has to do the right thing. And it's not just the fact that he loves him. That's part of it. But that he has to do, justice has to prevail.
Yeah.
And there's another thing, we talk about the title of the story, Speaks the Nightbird.
Yeah.
And there's a whole thing there about, listening to the nightbird sing. And the magistrate tells him the story about this man who listened to the nightbird sing. Kind of got obsessed with the nightbird to the point where he turned away from the day and lost everything, including his life. And it's quotes I wrote down as well. So, unparable, Matthew said curtly, is there a point to it? You know its point. A parable, yes, but there's great truth and warning in it. It is not enough to love the nightbird's song. One must love the nightbird, and one must eventually fall in love with the night itself. Now, that's the difference between Matthew Corbett and the magistrate. The magistrate, to the end, still believes in day and night.
Yeah.
Whereas I think doesn't understand that sometimes in order for justice to take place or things to happen, you have to look into the night, discover clues, and find truths. And not all truths are in plain sight. Some of them are hiding in the shadows and so on. So big difference between Matthew and the magistrate. Yeah. That's just my 2 cents.
Beautiful. I love those quote selections as well. I think I think about the themes in this book, and one of the since we're on the kind of topic of quotes as well, one theme that I thought was very interesting was love. And there's a quote I'd found which had really resonated with me. I'd highlighted it on my Kindle, and because I was reading kind of the hard copy, and then I'd switch to Kindle, and sometimes it's fun to read that way. It's a side tangent.
I wish I should actually highlight stuff as well.
Yeah.
Even if I'm reading a book, I should actually put in little things where the passages are. But
It
I never
does
do
make
that.
a difference, actually. Yeah, it really makes the reading. Yeah. So there's a quote that says, "Love, what is it really? The desire to possess someone or the desire to free them?" And I just feel like that quote is just so apt for Matthew Corbett and Rachel Howarth's budding relationship, or kind of Matthew Corbett. I feel like his experience with the kind of the trial of this witch and getting to know her as a person and not just as how she's demonized by this town, and so that kind of centers his moral compass, because he takes the time to get to know her when everybody else has kind of written her off as a witch, the magistrate included, going by the book, checking the boxes of what should be done and what shouldn't be done, what is propriety, what is impropriety in this situation. And Matthew's curiosity makes him get to know Rachel, and he starts to realize not as all as it seems. And as he grows to love her, fall in love with her, that idea is just so profound, because the idea of possessing someone versus setting them free is both metaphorical and literal in this.
And I think that actually talks about opening the cage, letting the out there.
Right.
You're absolutely right.
I think that's a beautiful way to describe it. Like even the magistrate has a very, like you were talking about with the Nightbird analogy here. The magistrate is looking out for Matthew Corbett's best interest. He loves him like a son, and he wants him to not be swayed by the powers of this so-called witch, right? So
it's always best intentions, but he's ends up being wrong. But,
100%. And I think his, he unfortunately pays the ultimate price for that, because he doesn't listen to he's not open to new ideas, let's put it that way. So because he does everything by the book, he treats her as a witch, because it's always guilty until proven innocent in these types of cases, at least. And then also, he's like, oh, I've come here to be a magistrate. I'm feeling sick, but I'm going to do my job because this is my job. It's all by the book. Everything is by the book. And
you might think that, he gets very sick.
Yeah.
He gets very, very sick. You might think that if he had not been so sick, he might have been more open to Matthew's ideas, or open to what Matthew was saying to him.
Yeah.
But it got to a point where it was just, no, we need to rush this now. I need to do my job without thinking clearly.
True.
I just had to go to that doctor. I'm sorry. That was grim. Bloodletting and that concoction for his bad cough, his bad throat. Things like some kind of serious drug going on there.
I think it was like some opium thing or something like that.
Opium and marijuana, whatever was on there was like, it was just making him worse.
Yeah, it's like everything the doctor did to treat this guy was making him worse. It was like the cups thing, when he would like burn the cups, and then like his skin would raise from his body, and it was just like really horrific stuff. It's like, wait, that's supposed to make you better?
And that's how things were done back then.
Yeah. And they were like, oh, you're sick, your blood is just not moving enough, you need bloodletting to move the blood through the circulation. It's like that was like an actual medical procedure, and this guy's just like being put through the ringer. So that was a very hard, I feel like that, I don't know if you felt the same, Cliff, but I know for me that was very hard to read, actually, because it's like on the one hand, knowing what we know now about medical advancements,
that's what I said.
This doctor.
It was so grim.
Yeah.
And that actually made me, what led to that was the mayor saying, no, you're going to do whatever you have to do, make him well so that we can, made me hate the mayor even more. So he was just making him, trying to do like a quick fix thing, which was just going to kill him. And the mayor knew this. but he just wanted the trial to take place and the switch to burn.
Yeah.
It's just completely illogical and just, yeah.
Yeah, he was completely thinking only for himself, and he was
Only selfish. Yeah.
and it was a very compulsive behavior too. Like I noticed, like it's almost like he couldn't stop himself if he tried. You know, he just couldn't think of anything else. He was like fixated on this idea because, you know, his whole town depended on it. So he's like, that's all I care about. Oh, he's fine, right? Yeah, let's just put him back out there. Yeah, no problem. You know.
You couldn't stand him.
Yeah, so it was just much to these characters' detriment, and it was also, you know, the magistrate was like, I came here to do a job, and so he kind of also didn't back down from that, and he didn't listen to Matthew Corbett, you know, and stuff like that. It's really hard to read that because you could tell he was a good man at heart, misguided but good man. So yeah, that was a tough one.
Were there any parts of the story that you really did not enjoy?
I like personally, I would love to know your answer to this, Cliff. But
I know what I'm gonna. You know what I'm gonna say.
Yeah. You know, I don't think that there was anything that I necessarily didn't enjoy. I didn't enjoy Exodus Jerusalem scene because he was just so infuriating as a character, you know. But of course, he was a great part of the story because he added a different dimension to the proceedings, you know, and he took some of the stuff out of Matthew and the magistrate's control. Whereas if they had been able to run their procedure normally, who knows what could have happened? You know, I mean, maybe Rachel would have been deemed guilty, or Matthew might have had a little bit more influence. You know, there wouldn't have been this mob mentality necessarily, literally and figuratively storming this, you know, this jail cell and stuff like that. But so, you know, I felt like was necessary to the story, but really irked me. But I would say the one scene that felt a little out of left field for me personally is I loved how Matthew Corbett, you know, breaks Rachel out and everything, like overtakes the guard, and then they like run off together. I love that aspect of it. Then after that, they show a lot more than they show a lot more than I expected they would. Like there's a whole scene where Matthew's fighting a bear that you know was known as what was it, like one-eyed something?
One-eyed something, one-eyed Jack or something.
Yeah, right. He was like kind of a legend of urban legend.
Defeating him, ends up mortally wounding the bear.
Yeah. I mean, it's so I thought I like, and then he wakes up in that tent, and those Native Americans are giving him like this. Like a kind of herbal ceremony or something like that to try to, you know, help him recover and stuff. All that stuff before they go back into Fount Royal to kind of, you know, clear her name officially, right? That whole scene, I'll say it this way: it's like, again, if it was any other author, I would have not bought it for an instant. Robert McCammon kind of makes you take these crazy scenes and almost buy them. But to that point, I did feel like
he writes them so well, and it's so entertaining.
Yeah, you're like, I'm just along for the ride. I don't even care, you know, whatever. Like, and so,
Sorry,
so I was just gonna say, I think that was just the one scene that I felt was a little out of left field for me personally. But again, I love the way he wrote it. So it's like there was nothing that made me go, oh, I really wish this was not in there. But that was one that made me kind of took me out of the story a little bit, I think. Well, especially when the tension was so high. You know, they just broken out, they just escaped. So that was just mine. But yeah, how about you, Cliff?
Yeah. Oh, I actually just want to add to that. The Indian in the tent, you know, the tribe, and everything, and then he either does or does not make love to Rachel, and he doesn't know if it's a dream or reality. He wakes up and he's still a virgin or. Right. Kind of bizarre. That was kind of weird.
Yeah.
But still, that's okay. But let's just say that but yeah, I found one scene that felt a little bit too like a strange kind of Sherlock Holmes kind of how I'd imagine maybe Agatha Christie sort of thing. Get all the people in the room. Right, now we're going to figure out who the killer is. And that scene kind of so it's like ends a mystery of like, okay, you are this, and now your foot is not to reveal who the killer is. Yeah. And they kind of know, and you got bounced at the door, and they got to kind of reveal that way. I thought it was just a bit odd. I thought it would be more dramatic. I thought it would be done differently instead of an enclosed room.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. Yeah, I just thought it was a strange way to do it. I also found, like I said to you already, I found the actual trial with the people coming to give the thing about she slept with the devil, but I wasn't enjoying that anyway at all. It was only after that I really got into the book.
Interesting. Yeah,
it's not really. I loved the tribe and the bear. I just found it so entertaining. It's just so entertaining that he wakes up naked and this tribe is almost like more, what's the right word, knowledgeable and illuminated than the white man, basically.
Yeah.
Except for what he finds in that tent.
Right.
Yeah, cringe with that.
Yeah, I totally see what you're saying, Cliff, about the scene where he kind of reveals Rachel's proof of her innocence, in this room, and kind of who the culprit is and everything like that. It did almost feel a little expository in a way, it's kind of like
added on as a
it did feel that way, and it was kind of like you didn't feel the tension anymore because the real culprit behind all this has nowhere to go. Is like all just there chatting about it in front of him, so there's no like daring chase or anything. It's just kind of, there's no action behind it. It's more like, and this is how we knew. And already Bidwell is like, bring her out. Like, he was kind of in on it, but that happened off the page. So, so it kind of came out of left field a little bit. I personally did like, I did like that trial aspect only because like the descriptions of those three people talking about why they believe Rachel was a witch was interesting, because it's like it kind of toes the line where even you start thinking like, how is Matthew going to prove this one? It's like there's ones that seem outrageous. It's like, oh, this was probably a dream they were having. But then when the little girl mentions her whole, what she saw, then you start going like, oh man, the three people are seeing something similar. And of course it couldn't be something otherworldly. So what would he do to prove something in a grounded way? It kind of got me thinking.
It's not all that. It's the fact that it's a witch trial.
Yeah.
Right. So for me, it's not. That was early enough in the book for me to think, oh, yes, she saw this beast on all haunches, and the girls, I don't want to say it. What she's doing to this beast, whatever. I just didn't. Yeah. I know that it's interesting. That's going to add to the story, but it's like reading The Crucible again.
That's fair. Yeah.
Area, that kind of thing. Yeah. But what I really did enjoy is finding that why they were so hysterical and having these visions. Good old rat man. What old rat man? Yeah, what he was doing to them.
Yeah.
Kind of look at the coin.
That scene was incredible.
That was brilliant. I loved it. Yeah.
That was very Stephen King-esque, I thought.
That was. In a little bit of magic, kind of. Yeah.
100%. Like you could almost feel yourself the way that whole scene was described. Matthew Corbett being in this house alone with him, and not really having any recourse. I mean, the door's right there, but he's like being sucked into this room, and through like the power of this hypnosis, and as you're turning the pages, you're almost feeling like you're being sucked into the room with him. It draws you in, the reader in, kind of like how the character's being drawn in. I thought that was really, really
nice. That was brilliant. Yeah. No, I'm just saying that reveal for me was so much better than at the end there. Kind of the bounce at the door, looking out there. Yeah, there was a bit of tension. He had a knife or something at his throat or whatever. So there was a bit of tension.
Yeah.
But it just felt a bit out of place. To what was happening around that. Beforehand, you reading about bears and
I feel like
sorry?
Oh, sorry. I'm just gonna say everything up to the breaking out of jail felt like one story, and then I felt like it went off into a slightly different
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like everything with from the bear onwards into them coming back and that whole confrontation at the end. It felt like slightly different tonally. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know.
Yeah, probably, yeah. But look, overall, I loved it. I enjoyed it.
Oh, yeah.
I have to say 4.5 stars.
Yeah, same. 4.5 for me. I am so excited to continue on this journey because I feel, I think that as time progresses, as Matthew gets older, his thought process, his fears, and things, it's like you think about the magistrate, that guy was older and he was very ensconced in his kind of line of thinking, right? Whereas Matthew Corbett was younger, so he also had an open mindset at that point. But I'll be interested to see if he keeps that mindset or if it evolves or devolves as he gets older, and in subsequent entries, kind of how that plays into his thinking and how he's kind of, solves these mysteries.
I look forward to seeing at different times in history. But like I said, this particular time with the witchcraft trials and all that wasn't as interesting to me. So I'm interested to see how this evolves, and where this goes, and kind of the settings that are going to happen, like in the future books. And the adventures he has. So I actually want to start reading. What do you call it?
Bedlam.
Bedlam. But I'm getting a surprise soon.
Ooh, cool.
I might just be getting a hard copy. So I'm waiting patiently.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. I ended up
not a hard copy, just a copy. I might be getting that. I shouldn't say that in case it doesn't come in the post.
I ended up getting the hard copy of the first book, and then the other ones I ended up just getting on Kindle because actually I don't know if it's still on sale, but it might have been a couple weeks ago, all of them were on sale for like $2.99 each or something on Kindle. And so I just ended up picking up the whole collection,
But I see Queen of Bedlam's not as big as, 300, 400 pages? How long is it?
I think it's 600 if I remember correctly.
Oh, okay.
But then the rest of the books, like you mentioned, it's like the rest of the books end up getting smaller and smaller. So they end up being around 300-400 pages a piece for the subsequent entries, actually.
Okay. No, that's fine. I can manage if I can get into it.
Right. I know we all want to read chonkers, but it always comes at a cost of reading other books, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's awesome. I'm so glad we get to do this, Cliff. It's just so nice to be able to chat with you because I know, we have so much of the same taste in books and as we're on a quest to read every book of our favorite authors, it's nice to be able to start off a read along, on the channel.
And I'm doing a Dark Tower read through. I've finished.
That's
right.
Gunslinger,
and I'm starting next month. Actually, no, I'm supposed to be starting this month. Not sure. I might start again next month. I'm doing the drawing of the three.
Oh.
So I'm going through the whole thing now. I'm going through all of it. Love it.
That's amazing. Oh man, I'm on a reread now. I stopped at the 6th book, and then it's been a few months now since I've read any Dark Tower. So I'm going to join in with you all for the final one.
Are you willing to be that patient?
Oh yeah. It's hard to be that patient, but maybe what I'll do is I'll join in on the 6th book instead. If I can't wait any longer, I might
just to remind yourself.
Yeah.
But this was awesome. Thanks, mate.
Thank you so much for being on the channel, Cliff. For all of you who haven't seen Cliff's channel, it's a wonderful channel and it's pretty much exclusively horror and darker stories and stuff like that, and he's the go-to guy for that. So definitely check it out. I'm leaving the link in the description there. Cliff, it's so nice to be able to chat with you, my friend. So grateful to being here. And for those of you who don't know, we're doing this Matthew Corbett read along. So if you're just tuning in, you can join that as well. We have a read along schedule in the description, a Discord channel where you could join in and talk section by section, or if you want to talk chapter by chapter, we have the Fable app that it's on as well, and you can look at the link down there below. Cliff, thank you so much for being here, man. I really appreciate you, and thank you all for watching.
Yeah, thanks for having me, my friend.
Awesome. We'll see you very shortly, and probably maybe we'll figure out another time to do another one of these on one of the other books that we read together or that we're going to read together in the future. So with that, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Cliff.
No. I was just saying, thanks for watching, guys. This was awesome. Thanks.
Wonderful. Yeah. I'm Nikhil with Shelf-Esteem, and we'll see you very soon. Take care. Bye.
This thing is a delayed reaction, so you have to